Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to our weekly Family Connections. We are going to get started in just a minute. Want to make sure we have everybody have time to get logged in. So while we're waiting to get started, if you have questions that you would like to have answered as we are talking, please feel free to pop those in the chat or in the Q&A feature, and we will answer as many of those questions as possible live while we are talking. We are here today with Janelle Martin. She is our Director of College and Career and Military Readiness. We also have Jesus Gomez. He is our Director of Equity and Inclusion with the district. And I'm Rachel McLean. I'm the Assistant Superintendent with Learning and Innovation. And we are going to be talking today about options for high school and some elective options. And so kind of a historical view of what that looks like, but really what Snyder's view is today. And so Janelle works with all of those programs. And so we'll just jump right in. We've got quite a few questions to cover. So Janelle, what is a career technical class and what makes it different than like a elective?
Elective. Well, sometimes those are one and the same as way some individuals may view that. But here at Snyder ISD, we look at career and technical education classes as courses in a program of study that students would take to prepare them for life after high school. They will gain insight in several of our program areas that we have. It could be in our animal science area, could be in applied ag engineering, carpentry, culinary arts, digital communications, digital graphics, entrepreneurship. In our plant science area, we have two focuses, one in floriculture and one in our horticulture greenhouse. We also have renewable energy, which becomes our drone course, where our students end up with a drone pilot approved FAA certification. There could be, I believe I already mentioned culinary arts. We have law enforcement, we have welding, we have teaching and training, petroleum and oil and gas or petroleum engineering areas. So you can see what typically have been looked at as electives, which that's what they could be. We are focusing that on programs of study in a coherent sequence of courses.
So talk through that. What is a program of study and a coherent sequence of courses? I was stumbling over that one myself. So what does that mean? And what is that expectation for students as they enter high school and progress all the way through their senior year?
Okay. One of the things that we have done, not only here within Snyder ISD, but in conjunction with the state of Texas, has outlined, and I'm going to kind of show this right here. I know this is not the way to share a screen, but we have programs of studies that is outlined the sequence of courses that a student would take their freshman year, their sophomore, their junior, and their senior year. Within each of those courses, there's expectations of certifications, whether it is local certifications that would give a student soft skills or entry-level skills in order to go into the industry, or in our junior and senior or level 3 and 4 classes, we would have our industry-based certifications so that it would be an actual employable certificate that students could take to an industry, gain full-time employment, and may start at a higher pay scale because of having that preparation within their coursework over the 4 years that they are at Snyder High School.
So tons and tons of options.
Yes.
So where that you held up the paper copy, how do parents get access to that, or is it on our website?
It is located on our website. If you will go to the Snyder High School page, there's really two options that you can locate it under our College, Career, and Military Readiness link. It's called a Program of Study Guide. And then also under our PTech page, we have that same link, and it is an Adobe PDF file, so anyone can download it. We made it user friendly, not only on a laptop, desktop, or on a mobile device.
So I see where Jesus has put that in the chat. So that's the link directly to the PTech page, and that's where parents can see that.
Yes.
And so it not only has like the courses, there's information about careers and income.
Yes. Workforce through the state education agency and our workforce development have aligned various levels of career entry, exit, higher ed careers, and salary scales. So students can kind of get an insight as to maybe the career they're interested in, what they can expect with the level of education they receive beyond high school, kind of give them an idea when they start planning for future careers. Another thing that we're utilizing to assist our students in planning that, we worked with our 8th grader, incoming 9th graders, through our EduThing program, that they have taken a career interest inventory, kind of seeing what they like, what they don't like, to kind of help guide them towards a program of study. So I know the high school counselors worked with those students at the 8th grade. We are currently working within Snyder ISD to develop a PK through 12 kind of model that would expose our students to the programs of studies that we have at currently at Snyder High School, which are meeting the demands of the industry and workforce, not only in our area, but our region. And, there's some that we've branched out across the state of Texas that we're preparing students for.
So I heard a statistic the other day that 99% of all the jobs that are coming to Texas that are high wage, high demand are requiring some form of post-secondary. So something beyond a high school degree. So that can be the certifications that you're talking about, or some of the programs have dual credit. And so all of those things could happen during high school and then also lead to other options after high school.
Yes, they most definitely can. And one of the unique things about Snyder High School is our PTech program, which is a pathway to early college through our career and technical education programs. So our 10 programs that we have that are designated as our PTech pathways, all of those align to dual credit options, as you mentioned. Several align to actual degrees or certifications that students may have to continue 1 year, possibly 2 semesters after graduation in order to complete that level of certification. But it's like a student told me at some point in time that they were going into a computer programming area versus an engineering degree. And I just asked the question, why are you choosing to go into that? Because he said, well, in 18 months, I'm going to be making more money than you. And I thought, well, that's a good incentive, and that's what we're doing at Snyder High School, is preparing students while they're in college that they could graduate with high school graduation diploma, as well as a certification or a degree, and go straight into the workforce. I mean, just today we had 6 or 7 of our own high school students graduate with their associate's degree from Western Texas College, and they won't even get their high school diploma for another 6 weeks. Right. So they're already one step ahead of everyone.
That is true. That is true. So over the past few years, parents may have heard us talk about like endorsements, and now we're talking about programs of study, and you mentioned associate degrees. How do all of these fit in? And
they all lead to the same thing. It's preparing students for life after high school. One of the things that we have, all of our programs of studies are aligned to one of the 5 endorsement areas. And I can show here again, here's another example of those endorsement areas. And you can see how we've aligned those to the programs of studies. This is accessible on the website with that link that Jesus provided if you want to look at those. That is just another recognition that a student has selected this area of intense focus and studies, and all of their courses are aligned to that kind of that pathway. It's the big umbrella, and then we've kind of narrowed it down.
So if a parent hears a child talking about some new term, it's really not a new term. It's just a more of a focus term.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So you mentioned about the 8th grade students. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Like how, so not only for our 8th graders, but what tools or processes are available to help a student decide, like, of all of these options, what is their best time spent in high school, and how do parents know how to help their children in deciding what classes to take?
Okay, that is where working with the counselors to provide some insight and some resources. I always like to encourage students, decide something that you like to do. Because I heard it, in fact, just the other day, said, you know, if you like something, you'll never work a day in your life because you enjoy what you're doing. It never becomes a job. And so that's why it's never too early to start thinking about life after high school, 5, 10, 15 years down the road. What kind of job do I want to do? Then start having those conversations at home with parents, with older siblings, with fellow classmates of, hey, this is what I think I want to do. So now how do I get there? And that's the role of a guidance counselor, or at the high school, the academic coordinator. Those individuals are there to assist students in looking at the options, kind of focusing, narrowing their choices down. Coming into high school, there's a kind of that big-eyed approach about everything, and sometimes you get a little overwhelmed. You want to explore a lot of the options, the electives, the things you like, what you don't like. Start making those decisions now, testing the water, and then as the sophomore, junior, and senior levels of classes become available, you start narrowing your focus, and you find what you really enjoy and where you see yourself kind of progressing in. So working with the counselors is a big step. Counselors are there to help. That's why they're called guidance counselors. They're there to guide students and provide them with options. And, you know, students change their mind along the way, and that's okay. But it would be better to decide now before you invest 10 or 15 years into something that you don't like at all, and then have to do a complete stop, rewind, and go in a different direction.
So what if a student decides to change their mind? I mean, an 8th grader is a little young to make a lifelong commitment. And we always hear that feedback. So what if they decide to change their mind, or they get into a class, they don't like it, and they want to change? What happens?
And that is, we're going to the counselors and talking to them, because we have students assigned to their program of study. They select that graduation plan, whether it is their academic plan, regular classes, honors classes, dual credit, and then their program of study. So if they get into a class and they realize as a freshman, they take some of those intro or principal level classes, that's just really not for them, then I would strongly encourage them to set a time up, talk to their counselor, talk to parents, counselor, get everybody involved. I always say home and school's got to be on the same page, and have those discussions and see how best we can realign the program of study for them. So there are some flexibility and some options.
Sounds good. So in doing kind of that same thought process, a student can complete more than one program of study.
Correct. Correct. A student only has to have 26 credits in order to graduate. But at Snyder High School, we have 8 classes a day currently over 4 years. And if my simple math does, that comes up to 32 credits. So you can see students are going to graduate with more than the required 26 credits. Those 26, there are certain amounts of English, math, science, and social studies they have to fulfill part of that graduation requirement, but they have some options for those elective classes. So in theory, a student could have 2 programs of study that they're interested in, and that's great, because the more they can diversify their background and knowledge, I always looked at it, it makes them more marketable once they get into the career field, because they are very unique in their skill sets.
Yes. Yes. So what is, we kind of encounter sometimes 2 different thought processes with with parents and maybe how they view elective classes. Some parents, want children to experience as many electives as possible, just all over the map. And then that's different though than like a program of study. And so
Right.
what are the benefits of a student participating in a program of study as opposed to just taking a ton of different electives?
Right. Well, going back to what we talked about, that program of study really designs and focuses, kind of channels all the energy into those areas of interest, so that they are gaining that knowledge and skills increasing each year in that particular subject or topic area. If a student says, I really like a lot of things, a program of study, honing in on one is not what I really want to do. That's why it goes back to those endorsements. We have a multidisciplinary, meaning they could kind of combine several of those selective areas together and create their individual program. But with the wide variety of course offerings that we have at Snyder High School, it would be hard pressed to see that a student couldn't find some area of interest for them in one of the programs of studies. And if we start seeing that a lot of students are developing an area of interest or an interest in another area, we will revisit that program of study and those alignments, especially if there's a workforce demand for it. So that's something that could be ever changing.
I'm muted.
Uh-oh.
Any of these programs, do they cost money to the students?
Well, the programs in our P-TECH program do not cost money for our students. That is one of the perks of Snyder ISD being involved in our P-TECH program. All the way down to their dual credit classes, Snyder ISD will cover the expense of those courses. The industry-based certifications, that is a kind of a requirement of the class, the capstone, the ultimate ending of that course of study. Then we will prepare our students and then provide and cover the expense of those certification exams that they will take that credential on with them. Now, if a student is not in a P-TECH program and opts to do the dual credit associate's degree or earn, dual credit classes, there's a couple of options that they will be able to have a tuition at a reduced rate through Western Texas College and the opportunity scholarships. So there is ways to help students that might have a financial need or struggles or something. And there again, going back and talking to the counselors at the high school, the academic coordinator, letting them know, here's what I want to do. Here's maybe some barriers that I think I'm facing. And I bet our staff will be able to show them that there's ways around that to allow them to accomplish their goals and desires.
So I know if we got senior parents on the call, they're starting to hear more and more about the Capstone Project, but the Capstone Project aligns directly to these programs of study.
It does. It does. A capstone is just that. That's kind of the cherry on the top, the end of 4 years of hard work and study, especially those that have gone into a program of study and really delved into and gained a lot of insight. This is a time for them to showcase what they have learned over the 4 years at Snyder High School. During that time, there are steps and I guess you'd say processes each year that are required in preparation for the capstone. So it's not something that takes place all of a sudden the last 3 weeks of a senior year when it's the busiest time of a student's life. We have put in place a program that will guide them there again each year in meeting some of the components in preparing that capstone, from beginning a resume all the way to writing that thesis statement and then the presentation that will be showcased in May at our senior capstone.
So like activities like FFA or, we have some other 4-H and other things. How did those type of activities fit into these programs of study?
Okay, just like any other extracurricular, all of our CTE programs have student organizations. CTSO that have that extra component after hours outside of the classroom that students can become involved in, because we've always said a student that is involved not only in the classroom but outside is a well-rounded student. During those organizations, they will learn leadership skills. We have FFA that normally typically aligns with our agricultural science areas. So we've got 4 pathways, or excuse me, you have 4 pathways that kind of feed into our FFA. Some of our other organizations is Skills USA that combines our carpentry, our manufacturing, and our automotive, also our healthcare, as well as our culinary. So students involved in that can be active in an extracurricular organization. Culinary has kind of a dual role. This year we are combining with our 4-H. Typically 4-H is outside of a school setting, but because of our culinary arts program, we have our own 4-H club that will be participating in a 4-H food challenge through their culinary arts class. So it's very hands-on, and they're going to take what they learn in the classroom and take it to a competition level. Our teacher in training, our TAFE program, where our students that are wanting to become educators are learning how to be a teacher before they are in a teacher training program. Through our TAFE organization, it's future educators. They learn how to, through competition, they can do bulletin boards, they can do lesson planning, they can do all sorts of leadership type activities in a competition. Most of the student organizations, those activities and involvements lead to some type of scholarship. So with that scholarship at the end, there's another way you can help pay for future educational goals and degrees is through your involvements in those extracurricular activities.
We did have a question come in on the Q&A. So all of these activities we're talking about at the high school level, but what's available or to younger students, or how do we align activities in our district to support kind of that K-12 or pre-K-12 initiative?
Okay, some of the activities that will be aligned, especially going forward in planning for next year, may be in-class activities related to those programs of studies. But we will be working with the individual grade levels and teachers of certain subjects as students progress to kind of incorporate some of those hands-on activities. Of course, 4-H activities are always open to any student, 3rd grade through high school. We have a junior FFA program for those that really want to maybe exhibit livestock activities. There's not the leadership development activities for them until they get into high school, but they can be involved in organizational type skills and activities before the high school age.
Okay. I guess we have just a few more minutes left. I want us to clarify, I think this is kind of a confusing point for some parents because it's a confusing thing. The difference in the local certifications and the state certifications, and then a level 1 certification and a level 2 certification. So they're all industry certifications, but they all have a little bit different meaning.
Yes, they do. They do. We have our students start out on our level 1 and 2 local certifications in our freshman and sophomore level classes. They begin developing some of those soft skills, how to communicate, how to prepare a resume, how to do some entry level type skills in preparation for the workplace. Once they reach their junior and senior level courses, our level 3 and our level 4 courses, then the industry recognized or state certification, those are the ones that they can actually take an examination or a performance skill and receive a certificate that they could hang on the wall, take to an employer to say, hey, look, I have mastered the skills, I can perform this, now I'm ready to be hired by you. Then the level 1 or level 2 certificates are beyond high school, where they take those dual credit classes in our automotive areas. they can become specialized in advanced automotive techniques and skills through dual credit. So that's where kind of the differences is. We want all students to graduate with at least one industry-based certification at the state level. And some of them require the level 1 and 2 dual credit higher ed education beyond that. But we're preparing our students for the state recognized industry recognized certifications.
Okay, and so to get the level 1, level 2, some form of dual credit is going to happen. It could happen in school or immediately after school,
Yes.
after graduation. Okay.
Mhm.
Last quick question. So we've talked a lot about career tech, but we still offer fine arts, performing arts, those type of things. And
Yes.
we have pathways in those also, correct?
Yes, yes. In our humanities area, fine arts and humanities, we have performing arts, which is our theater, our choir, band, where you perform either a musical instrument, your vocal performance, or on stage. We have non-performance, which could be art. In art, we have drawing, painting, and then we go into sculpturing. Already kind of covered the digital graphics and digital communications because that one kind of serves a dual role. We also have journalism. Some students may say, hey, I'm a great history buff and I want to learn a lot and take all the history courses. That falls into our humanities area as well. So you can see what we deemed as electives are also they're electives with a purpose, I guess you would say, because they align to that area of interest. And that's kind of where the mind shift needs to take place, that students start realizing, yeah, it's an elective class, but it's not just what a typical blow off class, because that's what a lot of times, unfortunately, electives get deemed as, and it's not that important. It's not beneficial, but yet it is serving a purpose.
Right, very important purpose. Okay, we are right at time, and so I appreciate our panelists. Thank you, Janelle, for sharing your knowledge. Just a quick reminder, in the chat, you can see the website address where parents, you can download our PDF version of the program of study guide. And then we will be back here next week for Family Connections at 12 and at 5. So thank you.